What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So the other day I dropped this video. Have I changed my mind about dreaming Spanish? And there was lots of nice comments in here, but I'm just going to sort this by newest because I saw this comment come in here, okay? And this one, there's been a few comments similar to this one, so I figure I'll just cover off on this one. They basically said, I would be happy if you would do a react to Matt Brook-Green's Spanish-speaking video where he talks about the pitfalls of the DS method. Now, the reason why people want me to do a react to a pitfalls video is because this guy here, he used dreaming Spanish, and my original video, the first video that I actually did a react to about dreaming Spanish, it was his video, and this was me reacting to that exact same video, but after 1,000 hours and my thoughts. Now, apparently, he dropped this video about 8 months ago, so I believe this is the one that everyone is referring to, so we're going to watch this now. Let's see. I have no idea how far along in his Spanish journey he is.
Are you trying to learn Spanish but feel stuck? I went from nothing to being able to comfortably hold conversations within...
Okay, so there's some music here. We're going to speed this bad boy up. We're going to go up to 1.25 and check this out, boys. Look at this. What's going on here? Holy shit, this isn't Coke. I know. I have water. It's bubbly water, though. I have water. Or what do they call specially bubbly water? It's like sparkling. So cute.
Just a few years whilst juggling a full-time job and far too many hobbies. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact steps I'd take if I started over, plus the biggest mistakes so that you can avoid them and progress faster. No digo que no pueda mejorar mi español, claro que sí, pero ya disfruto del contenido que me gusta, tener conversaciones con nativos y hablar de un montón de temas sin problema. Así que vamos con el punto primero. So that you know where I'm coming from, and so that you can still actually...
His Spanish was completely understandable. It sounded like there was an accent in there, but that's to be expected. So, he's clearly speaking it now. Because what, the first video I did a react to, he was 800 hours in only listening.
Worked. Let's start with what I did right first of all. Now, first and foremost, I bought a good pair of headphones and I set a daily goal, at least 2 hours of listening a day. That sounds like a lot, but if you travel to work or you've got chores to do, like for me, it's walking the dog, that time racks up really quickly and you'll probably do even more. So Spanish became the soundtrack to my daily life. Not just anything though. Material designed for learners that I could start to understand, even if I had to listen to it a few times. We'll cover some creators to listen to in a second, but listening was the backbone of what I did first of all, and it made all the other things fall into place.
Okay, so what I'm kind of curious to see via this video is, did he continue with the DS method all the way through, or did he deviate from it? Because in the previous video that I reacted to, when he was like 800-ish hours, he was following the DS method. You could essentially say he was a purist. I don't know if he had a background within Spanish or whatnot, but he was following the DS method.
Constantly hearing similar sentence patterns over and over just ingrains him in a way that reading about rules in a textbook doesn't. I didn't have hours a day to sit at a desk watching content, so I would try and fit Spanish into my daily life wherever I could. If you wait for the perfect moment to start, you'll be waiting a long time. So I would listen to content specifically made for learners that was super basic. So Dreaming Spanish, Spanish Language Coach, eventually Handy Spanish amongst other creators. And there are loads more now. So like Andrea la Mexicana is great, My Daily Spanish. Initially, you might have to watch the videos, but after that, you can listen to the audio for them in order to review the materials. With all the exposure, I picked up words and phrases without even trying. And I know some people can be skeptical, but if you get a constant daily input, it really works. I also tried a more structured course, so Ollie Richards' Spanish Uncovers.
Wait, Ollie Richards' course? So this is okay, so he didn't go the purist route. We can see that he's studying grammar in here. We've got pronunciation, speaking okay, so it's not going to be representative of my own journey moving forward.
It was helpful early on when I was just getting started, though I have to say, I think a huge amount of my progress just came from all of that listening. Now, at first, I didn't even speak. Instead, I did something called crosstalk. So I spoke English to my partner, who spoke back to me in Spanish. If I didn't get it, they'd explain in Spanish or screen share image searches so that I could still follow. And it was genius for understanding real conversations. Just ask a tutor or a conversation partner to give it a go. So I did that for nearly a year before I started speaking. And then later, I added reading, starting with graded readers, which are books made for learners, before eventually moving on to native materials that I could translate on my iPad. When I eventually did start speaking, I would speak a lot. Multiple conversation classes a week and talking to myself. So these days, I also journal in Spanish to improve some of the gaps and try and push my level. Essentially, lots of input and eventually lots of output does a great job. Personally, I didn't focus on studying with textbooks or memorizing lists of vocab. And I'll add that at some point, you have to jump into listening to or watching native content. If you understand zero, it's still too hard, so wait a little longer. But eventually, you have to step out of your...
Okay, so maybe he introduced the grammar into it when he was already able to speak quite well.
Comfort zone of stuff made for learners into things native speakers actually enjoy. So Luisito Comunica is great for this. His content is addictive and it is easy to follow. Even if you don't understand every single word, your brain will slowly fill in the gaps. And before we get into what I could have done better, there is one crucial lesson about pronunciation that I want to share. Oh, and if you want a detailed summary of all of the tips here, as well as other resources that you can use, click on the link in the description or use the code on screen now.
Okay, so far, seems pretty standard DS journey, although with some deviation at the back end.
When I first started, I noticed that jumping between different Spanish accents made it way harder to understand people at first. My brain struggled to catch up with the variation in sounds. But when I focused on just the Spanish from Spain, the sounds were more consistent between different speakers, so my brain didn't have to struggle so much. And whilst I'm not going to fool anyone that I'm from Spain just yet, my accent isn't a mix of lots of different countries, which might sound a bit strange. So to make your
Is that true? Let us know down in the comments section if you are a native Spanish speaker based on that small little part we saw at the beginning. He definitely didn't sound like he was from Argentina or anything like that. I'm guessing he kind of sounded like he was from Spain.
life easier, personally, I would recommend focusing on exposure to content from just one country at first.
That makes logical sense, and that's what I've been saying endlessly throughout my series. Even from like pretty much the beginning, I said once I figure out an accent, I'm going to be sticking to it. It's not just so that you get good at hearing a certain accent. It's so that you, if the idea that we are building a mental model is true, okay, it's so that you start developing your understanding, your model of the language based on that accent. You don't want to be a mishmash of like random different freaking language, like, you know, dialects type of thing.
Get comfortable and then branch out later. And whilst we're on pronunciation, one tip that really helped me. In Spanish, we put the emphasis on the vowels rather than the consonants, which is the opposite to English. So if you took the word hola and you pronounce...
Oh God, he's going to go, okay, I hope this doesn't become a full grammar breakdown.
...just the vowels, rather than having the strong L sound, it should sound more like hoa, hoa. So, hola. Not...
Well, actually, I don't know if this is true for Argentinian Spanish, which is what I'm focusing on anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Hola. Try it yourself and you'll sound way more natural. You can practice by doing some reading out loud or play with the emphasis on the vowels or the consonants. Honestly, after hours and hours of listening, you'll start to get more of an ear for the language anyway and what sounds natural. If you want to be super precise on it, you can get into accent training, so your brain often can't always hear every sound in a new language, and so training your ear can help. There is a channel called 10 Minute Spanish that goes into that if you're interested, but for me...
Okay, so watched videos on pronunciation. If the ALG method is to be true, then that shouldn't be needed.
It's all about
but maybe, obviously he didn't care about that. He just cared about learning Spanish.
Opportunity cost. There are only 24 hours in a day, and other activities might have a bigger impact on my Spanish. That is very much a personal choice though. So that's the things that I got right, but let's look at the mistakes I made so that you can try and avoid them.
Okay, let's find out what mistakes I'm going to definitely make.
So, there is a thing in Spanish called the subjunctive. Now, do not worry, I'm not completely going to go down that rabbit hole, but there was some advice that I ignored and I wish I hadn't. So, the subjunctive is a way of talking about certain things in Spanish, desires, hypothetical things, etc., etc. We won't get into that, don't worry. The thing is, the subjunctive isn't some advanced grammar thing that rarely comes up in Spanish. It is used in everyday conversations all the time. And also, if you're playing the English subjunctive drinking game with this video, I'll be using the rarely used English subjunctive later on. Anyway, I once heard Professor Patsy Lightbound say that when your native language doesn't have a certain feature, it's much harder to notice and learn it in a new language. So in retrospect, all those hours I spent listening to Spanish, I would have been hearing the subjunctive all the time. But because my brain didn't need to notice when the last letter of the word changed from an A to an E in order to understand it, you just tuned it out. So if I could start over...
So is that the subjunctive, is it? It's when it changes to an E. Oh, just learned some grammar, I guess. This shit's gonna happen, okay? I'm gonna pick up a little bit here and there, watching random videos and reading your comments. Like, it's not the end of the world. But, you know, the funny thing is, like, when it says from A to E, like in Esperanto, that would be from adjective to adverb. Okay, when it comes to the subjunctive, I have a concept of what it is, because in Esperanto, we have an imperative and conditional moods, and I know it's kind of somewhere in between, but that's about the extent of my understanding of it. And in Spanish, I apart from what he literally just said, I have no way of identifying it. Like, it hasn't come up in any speaking practice. Maybe it has. Like, maybe the teachers have definitely been using when speaking with me, I'm guessing. But, like, I have not noticed it at this point.
I would look at the differences in conjugations between the subjunctive and what we call the indicative, which is what you might think of as like normal Spanish. So that way, instead of having to go back and learn it later, I'd already have noticed it thousands of times, making it feel more natural, even if I did need to do a bit of polishing on it later on. So don't stress about mastering it instantly, but it is harder to notice something that you don't know exists.
So true. So much stuff. You know, okay, I've had some pretty crazy things happen over the last week or so with my speaking practice. One of the things is, and I'm probably going to talk about this in my DS update, but I kind of want to talk about it here as well, is that, like, I've had multiple tutors on Worlds Across that I've been trialing out. And I got to just narrow in on only the Argentinian speakers, because I had some speakers who, when I was practicing with them, they would be saying like tienes for like you have, okay? And then other ones, they would be saying tenes, tenes. And like, it was in the same context because we're role playing the same type of stuff, but they're saying it differently. And I'm like, what's going on here? And why is one always like correcting me and the other one's not? So I was so confused. And then like, they accidentally told me that basically it's because in Argentina, they do the second person. I don't know if this is true for all verbs, but they do the second person present tense verb differently. And I was like, fuck, did not know that. Okay. And that led into a whole discussion about você or whatever. And like, these are all things I've just never noticed, okay? Never noticed. I don't know if I'm going to start noticing them now. Well, I probably am, but like, I feel like that's probably the downside with like, a massive downside with ALG as well. It's literally impossible once you start talking with people for them to not accidentally drop hints to all these things. And the only way you're not going to be able to like, the only way you're going to be able to ignore those hints is if you literally just do not understand the hints. Like, teachers on any of these tutoring websites, even if you're just speaking with them, they're going to accidentally all the time say things like imperative, present tense, second tense, blah, 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 all this type of stuff. Like, unfortunately, they're just dropping that stuff.
So get familiar with what it looks like and you'll have a better chance of using it yourself. And I know Clau from ClassesCon Clau has some straightforward videos on it to get you started. So now, So
basically, his recommendation is, even if you're going to go the massive input route, something like the subjunctive, because English doesn't have it by standard and every sentence, is something you should study a little bit so that when you're hearing input, you're able to recognize it and therefore understand its pattern a bit better. Which I would completely agree with, but I'm totally not going to do due to ALG.
Look at something which would have improved my speaking sooner and saved me some very awkward conversations.
But obviously this also leads to the question of, if you are studying a language, how do you know what that language has that your language doesn't have? And that's where certain people would be like, see, there's no point researching these things. Well, it's easy to figure out. You can just ask anyone or even ask an AI. It'll tell you what features exist in one language but not another language.
There is a lot of talk about whether you should start speaking a new language right away or wait until you've had more exposure so that you don't pick up bad pronunciation. I took that advice to heart and I waited until I'd ranked up 900 hours before I started speaking.
Okay, so he almost made it to 1K.
Understand almost everything in conversation, but when I finally opened my mouth, I couldn't get the words out smoothly. Conversations were very awkward as I slowly found the right words. So
Yep, 100% true.
retrospect, I wish I'd started trying to speak earlier. Here's the thing. If I were to have started speaking sooner, something like the 10-minute Spanish pronunciation videos would have kept me on track, or even just asking my crosstalk partners about maybe a few tricky sounds could have helped. That said, my accent isn't terrible, so maybe holding off speaking can work. Instead of jumping straight into conversations and feeling overwhelmed, speaking to yourself is a great low-pressure way to get started. And these days, talking to an AI is a game changer to bridge that gap. I use Langua, which I'll link below, but it gives you corrections and suggests more natural ways to say things. Without a real partner there, you can take your time. Even go and make a cup of tea if you need it.
Okay, so it sounds like when he started speaking, he then went the traditional route of basically hitting it with some grammar, it sounds like he did some type of accent training in there. He's working with an AI, which is obviously going to be providing corrections and stuff. These are all great recommendations, and I fully support them. But unfortunately, it's not something I'm able to compare my own future journey towards, because he's gone off rails. He's not doing the ALG method anymore.
There's no pressure, and that can help you to build your confidence when it comes to having your first conversations. But there is one thing that I wish I'd done that would have helped even more.
Ooh. Is it reading? Early reading? Drink tea?
Okay, so this whole learning a language on your own thing doesn't happen overnight, and the risk is that you feel pretty isolated. My friends and family aren't going to share my passion for learning Spanish. But let's be honest, it takes commitment long term to make real progress. So for me, finding community tutors on italki has been great because rather than them trying to teach me the language, I can just chat without any stress, even if I make some mistakes. And it gives me that feeling of connecting with others in a low pressure environment. But one thing that I think could have helped me in the past is joining an online community. Now, I'm not just talking about another Discord or Circle or any of the other millions of platforms, but something with live online events where you can check in with a tutor as well as other students. If I wasn't such a raging introvert, I probably would have joined Sada Handy Spanish, which looks great.
When I have some speaking ability, I will search for locally here in Sydney some Spanish meetups and stuff where I can go and actually meet people who speak. But at this stage, it would just be awkward because like it's already awkward online practicing with tutors because they don't know how to, most of them don't know how to deal with me. I've started saying, oh, I'm just a heritage speaker. So, you know, I understand the language fully, but like I can't speak. So I'm here to learn to speak. And they're like, oh, okay, well, let's start practicing. Like that's the best way to explain it to them. Because like if you say you just sat there for 1,000 hours watching content, unless they've heard of Dreaming Spanish, and lots of them have, but like for those who haven't, they're just like, why? Like, and then you have to kind of explain what you're trying to achieve. So it's just easier in some instances just say, oh, you know, I've heard it for like years. I just don't speak it. So just speak Spanish to me. That's great. And then I'll just try and then we'll just, you know, try fix things up as I go. But then you've got to also try and explain on top. Yeah, don't try like explain the grammar too much. Like I got to act like I'm a grammar idiot and I don't know anything about grammar, so there's no point. So let's just practice like, you know, scenarios.
And I know they even do meetups in Spain. And I know Crew Paul has the Spanish crew, and there are basically plenty of others online. I think being part of a community not only motivates you, but can genuinely make the experience of learning the language so much more enriching. Maybe there's a community of native speakers local to you that have events. Even if you don't yet speak the language, having a sense of belonging to a group will be so much more likely to result in your success, because membership of that group becomes part of your identity. And when who you are is linked to the language, your chances of success skyrocket. If only there was a course centered on how important psychology is on language learning. But before you think that you need to start packing your bags and moving to a Spanish-speaking country to join a community there, check out this next video where I share the lessons I learned from speaking Spanish in Spain for the first time.
Okay, so overall, seems like pretty good recommendations here, you know, if you're following this method, the Dreaming Spanish route. It's funny the things that he is recommending, you know, like do some accent practice there, because I don't know how much he did because he didn't really go into depth with it. It was very, very, very high level. However, that and, you know, actually getting an understanding of the grammar a little bit earlier on, starting to speak earlier on, these are all things that I would recommend to someone. Definitely, if you're coming from an English background, you're learning Spanish. I would not be recommending waiting to 1,000 hours. At least not at this stage in my journey. Maybe when I get to 2,000 hours, I'll be like, actually, that was a great idea. But I don't think so. I don't think you need to wait that long for Spanish. Even if you're following the ALG method. The ALG method says that you should not try to speak. It should just start coming out. And in that case, at 1,000 hours, I'm not ready. So maybe if you're follow the ALG method, you're actually going to be waiting until like 1.5 or 2K hours. But if you're not, and you are going to actively try, which is more the DS method, 1K hours, you might as well just start at 600. You know, screw that, 500 hours. Like even earlier, like I feel like I was probably as ready to speak at 1,000 hours as I was at 600 hours when I asked you guys originally if I should try to start speaking now. Like, I don't think that extra, 400 hours provided anything. I feel like it was kind of an arbitrary number realistically. But if we're to go with the ALG thinking of you wait until it just starts rolling out, bit by bit, without actually putting any effort into it, because it is effort at this stage speaking. Like he mentioned it at 900, I'm mentioning it at 1,000. Then I feel like that must be really far down the track if you're doing this via watching videos online. Maybe if you just did pure crosstalk or you're in a classroom style ALG environment, maybe it'd be a different matter, but that's my experience at this time. Anyway, interesting video. I wish there was more details. It was very, very high level. But if you guys got any other recommendations, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, I'm assuming you're doing your input. Your bogan Australian English input, which means you're watching a previous video, not the newest one, which is fine. I don't mind. I got a backlog, guys. I expect you all to watch how many videos I got now? Okay, guys, I got 1.1k videos. Let me know what percentage of my videos are you guys through. I'll see you all in the next video.